The dark side of the sun. The sound of one hand clapping is a slap across your face. I've always found whispers far more disturbing than screams, haven't you? Say it proud, say it loud, or not at all. A whisper so insidious, so conspiratorial, so mean-spirited, excluding others right in their presence. A passive-aggressive scream lacking self-esteem. That's just about the worst kind of sound to be. It is tuned to the frequency of misery. Sound waves compressed into a battersea of themselves, even worse than a cell phone ring. At least I can turn the ringer off to the latter, while letting my virtual voice lie to you about returning your phone call. Technology steals the thunder from every sport eventually. Whisper quiet-like. Like the dildo wasn't bad enough, taking all the self out of self-pleasuring. Take a look around Fort Mason and Marina Park, and what do you see? Electric bicycles, motorized skateboards, scooters that scoot themselves. I'm waiting for motorized sneakers. Won't be long now. Nike will change their motto to "We'll do it for you," and 1 billion recreational athletes, inverted commas, and all will spend their paychecks or their parents' last thinning dime and form 1,000-mile-long queues so that they could dunk like LeBron James too. And professional sports will finally jump Fonzie Shark because who's going to pay to see something they can easily do? Maybe by then the ancient Roman-type coliseums will come back into fashion, but this time the gladiators will be robots, and the Christians will be social media platform designers, Instagram models, and politicians. Streaming live video on demand. It'll be the only reality TV I'd pay to watch. The Blue Angels are flying around now as I walk and type this into this mini computer cum tracking device that masquerades as a telephone. I marvel at their power and agility, and wonder when flying machines will be considered quaint vestiges of a kinder, gentler era, the horse and buggy equivalent of the olden days. We'll all be jet-propelled by then, retractable wings and windshields cleverly concealed in our lats and traps. Made from the finest bio-nanofibers freedom from freedom can buy. Adamantine strong, spider silk thin, fueled by energy drinks and hubris. Icarus will earn his rightful place in our iconography, right next to Prometheus and, of course, the blessed Saint Steve Jobs. The flags are blowing in the wrong direction today, or maybe this has always been the prevailing wind. After all, the Atlantic Ocean opened 200 million years ago, pushing North America westward. As the continent rifted away from the supercontinent Pangaea, it finally earned the name North America. Oceanic crust started to disappear as the continent shifted around. Exotic island chains slammed into the western edge, adding to North America's breadth. When North America gobbled up boundary between the Farallon and the Pacific Oceanic plates, its western margin shifted from a subduction zone to a transform boundary. This marks the beginning of the San Andreas Fault, which moves side by side, twerking like a motherfucker. With the sudden shutdown of the giant conveyor belt grinding against its margin, the continent relaxed, and the Basin and Range province opened in the southwest. The last little bits of the Farallon plate remain off the Washington and Oregon coast, and further south, near Central America. People didn't even show up here until a few thousand years ago. Asians, known as the Clovis, who crossed the Bering Straits during the last ice age, probably. All we have is one little baby's corpse to prop up this theory. And spread out to Central and South America. Nobody who measured and recorded anything for posterity lived in California until the 1700s, when the Spaniards showed up, and they were a bunch of marauding missionaries writing diaries and letters to sponsors back home. Not one Archimedes among them. Prior to Padre Junipero Serra and company, there were about 135 different languages spoken between tribes who lived in relative isolation. They weren't even what we falsely term Native American. Those guys came later. Then the Europeans, and all the rest. But remember this. Some ballsy Siberians 12,000 years ago showed up first, and eventually they created the concept of zero and abacuses and chocolate and vanilla and aqueducts and almanacs, and maybe they had compass roses, and maybe they didn't. But really, how did the prevailing wind really blow 10,000, 1,500 years ago? And how often has it changed? And how often will it change? Who the fuck knows? Fireballs have fallen from space, raining and crashing into the Dalakue city on the Chilean island of Chiloé in September. No one can identify what remains of them. Maybe they should have taken their pictures, put them on a milk carton, sent that carton to our neighbor, Rigel Cantoris, with the next shuttle, and hoped that extraterrestrials like white fluid secreted by the mammary glands of female mammals for the nourishment of their young, consisting of minute globules of fat suspended in a solution of casein, albumin, sugar, and inorganic salts as much as we do. So that maybe, just maybe, after they had their milk and cookies, they'd take a gander at the back of that milk carton, see their lost pals, and identify them for us. Because that's the only way we'll ever know for certain how to identify them. According to the experts, those fireballs were not meteorites, space junk, someone ostensibly authoritative exclaimed in some pseudoscience rag. I could picture him in his hazmat suit, looking like a paranoid beekeeper, shrugging his shoulders, taking a bite out of his slice of cold pizza or whatever they feed scientists in the field for lunch, the last sip from his bottled water, and tossing that plastic bottle in a trash can. A bottle that will eventually make its way into the overflowing graveyard of discarded stuff we call landfill. Or, if traffic is directed otherwisenly, into that huge forgiving sewer pipe that circles the planet, the one we call the ocean. Earth junk. That's probably what the seagulls, sea turtles, and whales say as they shrug their collective shoulders, eat their seagrasses and krill, and shit where they eat, without ever thinking twice about E. coli, Cryptosporidium, hepatitis, salmonella, or enteroviruses. Animals are arguably the biggest polluters of waterways on the planet, but they can't be impeached, boycotted, or voted out of office, so we just keep treating our water with chlorine and iodine and eating crow with our wine, or just buy the bottled kind, forgetting that everything we build, create, and do is as a natural part of this large, dynamic, highly adaptive, gorgeous, self-sustaining organism we call the world. And all this dancing round and round that maypole is no different from bees making honey, beavers building dams, birds nesting, spiders webbing, or whales spewing their cum in giant ingots of ambergris. Who knows? Maybe plastic will be the Earth's ultimate salvation. It may crawl out of the ocean like we once did, all primeval oozed and ready to link the stars like daisy chains. And it will be our child, born from man and from the good Earth, just as man was. It's evolution's latest baby. The universe may be nothing more than some mewling, bawling infant slowly growing into adulthood, and this planet, and all the little things that inhabit it, barely a wriggling sperm cell in its left testicle, fighting for its right to life in a solar system that's a mote of dust, in the eye of a spiraling galaxy that's a cookie monster slowly raiding and gobbling up all its neighbors while trying desperately to avoid annihilation by being shat out by the host body. It's the worst of the former Soviets and the former Nazi Germany combined. The dog-eat-dog mentality may be the only true universal constant. Praise Bob. Amen. Amen. Man, that little self-conscious seething colony of bacteria, viruses, and ether, full of shit and art and music and stardust. A monkey mated with a god, and man was misbegotten, caught in the snare between the sublime and the ridiculous. Our anima and animus animating the inanimate, hot breath blown into red clay, taking a turn on the potter's wheel, sowing seeds of chance in our glaze. We may not last much longer, but we'll have left the planet a little housewarming gift to remember us by. But hey, anyway, there are compensations. Even for those of you who believe otherwise, every October, the Gobi Desert is a sea of red, hot chili peppers without Flea or Anthony Kiedis, and has been since the time roads were first paved with silk. How beautiful is that? And for me, there's also this, to help me ride the tides of daily strife, to find the dance between the steps, the music between the notes, to enjoy that rush in a sudden gust of wind, to be the non in the nonsense. I don't want to be tight and bound, distilled and condensed. I want to be loose and free, expansive, truly Catholic, sowing my dandelion seeds in the rain of we, you and me, all my messy flypaper thoughts flapping their arms and legs in a whirling dervish of bucking wings. Every time I read an obscure article online about sunspots, I think of the Earth contracting galaxial measles. And then I think of measles and how red and communicable they are. And then I think of red and communicable, and I think of how infected I am with you. You and the blazing autumn of your hair, and the big fat harvest moon in your ever-waxing mind, and how I'd love to spend eternity skinny dipping beneath its shine, night swimming in your effluence. Then I remember I can't swim, and I smile even wider, thinking of your Cheshire cat grin, and how happily I'd die, drowning in that glorious eclipse.